Get ready for a no BS approach to health and fitness. This is NBS Fitness Radio.
And what's up? We're back on NBS Fitness Radio. I'm here with my good buddy, John Simmons. John Simmons went to Delta State with me. We played football together down there. And now John is the head strength coach of the Marion School District out in Arkansas. Say what's up, bud.
Hey, what's going on, man? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Man, give me the kind of purpose of today's podcast is to talk about like strength development, athletic development in youth. So I figured a fun thing to do is say, like, what's the dumbest thing you did when it comes to like your own weightlifting, strength development in high school?
Oh, man, in high school, you mean like what I did myself or what the coaches had us do?
Either or, like, just like, what's the dumbest thing you would call, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that?
So the dumbest thing the coaches had us do, I remember this vividly because, you know, everybody has this story if they're our age, right? So we did RDLs standing on top of a plow box.
Oh, yeah.
Back in the day, right? But it's the metal and the wooden plow boxes.
Yeah.
So we did, you know, stiff leg RDLs so that the bar goes past your toes, back is rounded like crazy, whatever.
Of course, high school kids' hamstrings are so mobile.
and then, like, as soon as you finish the set, then you had to walk over to the tall skin donor plow boxes, you know, the ones where you miss and you scrape your shins from your ankle all the way up to your knees. And it was like, so your legs were already taxed from hyper, you know, flexibility with the barbell. And then all of a sudden now it's like jump as high as you can.
She did RDL superset with box jumps.
Right, exactly. And of course the boxes were higher than they should have been. And it was, oh, come on now, you can get up there. Okay, here we go. And man, probably the craziest thing I did, so for me in 8th grade, we had City League football, right? And there was a weight limit to play, not just to carry the football like most places now, but just to play.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was 138 pounds my 6th and 7th grade year. So every kid in our league
had to weigh under 138.
Under 138. And you're talking about, so I'm from Northwest Florida, the Panhandle. So you're talking about we played a lot of teams from like Milton, Gulf Breeze, Pensacola, all those places. And, you know, I struggled. Like, I had to lose all this weight. And I would put on a sweatshirt and sweatpants under my pads.
Yeah.
Put myself on a 1,000-calorie a day diet. Like, I don't know. My parents, you know, I guess I always ate so much food that when I wasn't eating food, I was saving money. So
like, thank God.
But, I mean, I lost like 20 pounds both years.
So you have to weigh that like before season starts or before like practice starts?
Each game.
Oh, each game they weighed you?
Each game they weighed you.
Oh, wow.
And if you didn't make weight, you had till halftime. So there was like...
So you could play until halftime?
So you couldn't play until halftime.
Oh, you had to...
You had to weigh back in. So
you could lose your weight and come back at halftime?
Yeah. So literally there'd be game film of me and our tight end jogging around the field as you see everybody else playing because we're just trying to make weight.
Oh, man.
And, of course, I had teammates that had their entire pads, cleats, helmet under their, you know, arm and weighing in and they make weight.
Yeah.
And then me, I'm standing with nothing.
You couldn't go up like to the next age bracket?
I was playing up.
Oh.
That was the 7th and 8th grade bracket. I had to play that at 6th and 7th grade.
Oh, man.
So 8th grade, they said, hey, John, you know, we know everybody's having this problem, so we're going to get the weight limit bumped up to 175. Awesome. Next season, came in at 195 because I knew I could lose 20 pounds, right? And I was like, I got this in the bag. They're like, well, John, the weight limit did go up. It's like, okay, what is it? 142. I said,
oh, and about 4 pounds. You're like, oh, okay, 50 pounds over.
Right, exactly. So, you know, hindsight, I wish I would have at least practiced.
Yeah.
And still, you know, but I was so mad that year. Like, I'm too big to play football, really?
Right.
You know, like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. I'm too big to play the sport for big guys.
For big guys, right? Exactly. So what I did was I stayed at home and I ate like crazy and I trained like crazy. But so my parents, we had like just regular Sears barbell set. It was like a 45, a 35, 25, on both sides of a regular bar. But I would try to do power cleans in the garage. And, of course, it's steel weights, right? So I put, we had a boat. So I put, the tubes that you get pulled on and stuff. I put that down so I wouldn't break the concrete, not knowing what I'm doing, but I've seen it on TV or seen kids do it in high school. And I was like, I'm going to do power cleans. No idea what it was. I'm doing reverse curls and trying not to drop it on the concrete. So
when did that, because, I remember in college, you had really good technique because I believe your high school use an Olympic kind of style, or at least use Olympic weights.
Well, that's
movements.
Right. So in Florida, we have a varsity sport called weightlifting, guys and girls. It's changed a little bit the time of year, but for the guys, so I would play football and then I go to soccer in the winter. I did that for 2 years. And then in the spring, we had weightlifting team and track. So big guy threw the shot put, through the discus, and we had our weightlifting team. So our meets were on Mondays. And track meets were on Thursday, Friday, whatever. And the 2 lifts was pause bench and clean and jerk.
Okay.
So it was like a mixture of powerlifting and weightlifting.
Yeah. Okay.
And it was we had district meets, we had, state meets, and it got a little bit more, it's a little bit more evolved now. Yeah. But yes, I was exposed to the Olympic lifts as early as 12, 13, 14 years old.
Wow. That's awesome. What does, Tennessee doesn't have.
Neither does Arkansas.
They don't. Okay, I know Memphis or Mississippi does.
So you have Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, all have powerlifting, and then Florida has weightlifting.
Still same movements.
Still same movements.
The pause bench and the clean jerk.
Exactly. And I would argue that Arkansas and Tennessee are behind in football, and I don't know if it's directly related to that, but for me, there is a direct correlation with. We want our guys to get strong and compete against each other. Yeah. And it relates to the field. That was the one thing that I'm actually in the process of starting a powerlifting team at Marion. Yeah. Just because in Arkansas powerlifting, there are some powerlifting. It's more like the Northwest, but trying to contact schools on the east side of Arkansas just to get us to compete against each other.
Yeah, almost get a club going.
Exactly. Yeah. And we talked about even at my previous position, starting something like getting some Memphis schools together, and we're right across the river. So, because for me, it was awesome because on Monday, I'm going to come in, I'm going to outlift you. Yeah. And then on Thursday or Friday, I'm going to outthrow you. Yeah. And then after the summer, when I busted my butt in the weight room and running on the field, then I'm going to push you around in the fall. Yeah. And it was just that extra opportunity to compete and
And the development from it is going to carry over to the other sports you do.
Exactly. And it was great for me because I got exposed to, in the Panhandle, we had some, a lot of kids get recruited out of there. And, it's like, oh, he's a Florida commit, or, oh, he's a Georgia commit. I see why now. Yeah. Not only is he 6'3", 310, but he can also bench over 400, pause bench over 400 pounds and clean and jerk over 335 in high school. Yeah. And it's like, well, if I want to aspire to college athletics, then I at least know what my benchmarks should roughly be. That was my mindset anyways.
Yeah. Did who was your coach? Was it on, obviously you had a coach for the sport. Weightlifting?
Well, it was our football coach.
Okay, so same. Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty much so my offensive line coach, he was our head coach when I first got there. And he was a huge influence on me. I remember us sitting in his office, not just me and him, but the offensive linemen. We'd watch videos of Gail Hatch and Matt Bruce back then lifting. And he would show us videos of the old Soviet lifters, Taraninko, Bulgarian. But
when I was at LSU, I watched Matt Bruce do like a drop snatch. Yeah. With 315. Uh-huh. I was like, oh my gosh. That just blew my mind.
Yeah, he actually spoke at it was my first time actually getting to meet him. But he spoke at the National High School Strength Conditioning Association's Southwest Clinic down in Dallas a couple months ago. And, he was talking about the Hatch system and him growing up in it, and it's all, native Baton Rouge kids. They don't pull from whatever, and just talking about that and how passionate he was about it. And, just knowing about Coach Moffitt and working with Coach Jackson out at Utah State when he was at Ole Miss, and talking to all those guys that were down there at LSU and went and visited Coach Hatch, and just how much, they were into it. But so we didn't have like a true weightlifting coach. It was on our varsity coaches to kind of help us. And that was just part of like their side supplement. They did football, but it was like, hey, we'll give you a side stipend for weightlifting and for track or whatever. Yeah. So it was good.
So, okay, here's a good question. So for a while, I think there's been two schools of thought, but there's been groups of coaches who have kind of preferred the Olympic lifts for the power development, for the athleticism. And then there's been groups of coaches that have chosen not to use Olympic lifts because of the technique requirements to do them correctly.
Right.
In high school, did you see more guys and girls with good technique, or did a lot of people struggle? Was it up to your coach? What were kind of thoughts on all that?
So as far as the technique is concerned, same applies to college as it does to high school.
Yep.
Your better athletes pick it up quicker.
Mm-hmm.
Like just efficiently, neuromuscular, like they just pick up movements. That's why they're your better athletes. Yeah. They can move better. So I had a weightlifting background, right? I've been doing it for a long time. And when we got to college, you saw, like, of course, the Mississippi guys, they couldn't do it because they've been powerlifting. Right. They've been squat, bench, deadlift. Yeah. And is not limited range of motion, but just enough to get the lift. Yeah. And so therefore they couldn't get into a great front squat or a rack position, or it just wasn't fluid or anything like that. Yeah. So when I first started coaching, I was completely biased. Yeah. I was like, Olympic lifts, that's the way to go. And I still believe there's so much merit to the Olympic lifts. But from years of coaching, talking to other coaches and being around it, that's my background. Yeah. And I feel I have my USA weightlifting certification. I've coached athletes to be weightlifters and to meets and stuff. So I feel extremely comfortable 1,000% in coaching it and getting my athletes and teaching them and knowing, hey, they're messing up here. I know how to correct that in this process. A lot of coaches don't. Right. Coach what you know how to do. Yeah. Do I think that they're absolutely necessary 100% of the time? No. It's an ebb and flow. Like certain times of the year, we're going to focus more on them. Sometimes a year, we're going to back off a little bit. Or some sports might necessarily not need them. Like right now, my basketball teams, guys and girls, we don't do power cleans. We'll do clean pulls. Yeah. Just because right now, maturity-wise, I need to start working with those 7th, 8th, and 9th graders, the junior high teams more. But I think we can get there. Yeah. Baseball, it's a sport that I've done it in the past. I don't do it right now. Yeah. The kids that I have are more specialized in baseball. So they're not as many multi-sport athletes. So it wouldn't carry over as much. But, man, I'm telling you, if you know how to coach it, coach it. If you don't and you think it's beneficial, learn. Yeah. But there, and I know there's been teams that won national championships in the high collegiate level, teams that have been extremely successful in high school, and professional teams. They don't do it as often unless the athlete wants to know how to do it. Yeah. So, it can be very successful if you know how to coach it. If you don't.
Yeah. I gotta have a saying that sometimes that Olympic lifting is awesome, but not everyone's awesome enough to Olympic lift. Yeah, no doubt. And it's kind of like looking at it from the timeline, like, okay, how long do I have to teach this person how to do this? And what's going to be necessary to get them from where they are now to being like efficient at the movement. And if it's like, especially kind of being in the private sector. It's just like, hey, you got 6 months, and that's 6 months would be awesome.
That would be great.
1 month. He was like, well, if we only got 1 month together, I'm not going to spend a ton of time teaching technique.
I get 6 years.
Yeah, but you get 6
years. 7th
grade
to 12th grade.
That's rock and roll. Yeah. Yeah. And that was like when I was at LSU, and which is a very Olympic lifting kind of like based program. Like we did tons of snatches. We did all the Olympic lifts, and you kind of take for granted the fact that it's like, how'd you coach him? It's like, I just did it and said, mimic me, you know, I just picked it up. You know, it wasn't like it was like difficult to coach. Why? Because they're the best athletes on the planet.
You're talking about LSU here.
Right.
Top 5 recruiting class every single year in the country.
Right. They came back to Memphis and like tried to implement a lot of that same stuff and just got so frustrated. Like, why are you so bad at this? But it's like, well, they were not the same level athlete, and I hadn't had to be able to coach it to that same extent, you know.
Right. You tell a kid to do it, or hey, watch what I'm doing, and they pick it up. Just like, hey, watch this film. They pick it up and they do it in practice.
Yeah.
You tell a kid in high school or whatever, they're like,
okay, I'll try.
I have a hard time, you know, keeping my feet flat when I squat, let alone keeping this bar close to my body or whatever.
Yeah, I'm trying to just coordinating one joint action is hard enough.
Yeah.
Coordinating, you know, joint movement, all the joints in a short time frame at like maximum force
Less
is like
than a second. Yeah.
Impossible. So what's interesting about your position in Marion, which I think is really cool, is I mean, they hired you with kind of the purpose of kind of overseeing all athletic development for their entire school district. Now, the school district is a high school, a middle school, and an elementary school. Is that correct?
So it's 3 K through 6 magnet schools.
Okay.
1 7th through 9th grade junior high, and then 1 senior high, 10th through 12th grade.
Gotcha.
So it's a very small district within, you know, the mindset. Typically, you think of a school district, it's multiple schools.
Right.
It's our school, but we cover, because we're in the Arkansas Delta, we cover a lot of ground.
Yeah. Do you do much with the K through 6?
No, that's something I hope to do kind of in the future, just because
Gotcha.
that's where my kids go to school.
Yeah.
I'm one of the magnets, so I'd love to kind of go out there and just work with the PE teachers on, you know, adolescent just movement and all those things, and just try to give them different ideas to keep it fun and exciting, because that's the biggest thing at that age is, you know, you can get very complicated when it doesn't just let them play.
Yeah, they didn't have enjoyment for the process.
Exactly.
And like going to the weight room just versus the feeling like work.
No doubt.
But yeah, so you're in charge of kind of like the development of these athletes across all sports and across all years.
Right.
Starting in 7th grade all the way up through seniors, which is really different than at least what most schools do around here.
Right.
Because what most schools do around here is like each sports coach is responsible for like the development of that athlete in that sport.
Right.
And so what you end up having, like a big issue I see is like real bad, like I don't know what the word is, segmentalization, but where the baseball coach wants that athlete developed as a baseball player year round.
Right.
And the soccer coach is trying to make the soccer players better soccer players. But no one's really kind of having a big picture view and saying, like, how do we make these kids the best athletes possible?
Right.
And you have sports coaches whose expertise is in like the techniques and tactics of that sport and the drills and skills for that sport.
Right.
But like no real kind of understanding of like the general physical preparedness necessary to actually make kids better athletes,
right?
In turn, making them better individual sport athletes. So, like, what was kind of the mindset? Like, how did that all come about, and kind of what's the process been like in that unique situation?
So I got hired on as the director of strength and conditioning for the district, which we're a public school district.
Mm-hmm.
My superintendent is a rock star, right? Like he had the foresight. I might be one of no more than 5. There's no possible way. Coaches in the state that is hired on as just a strength conditioning coach. I don't teach.
Yeah.
We have our athletic periods during the day. So junior high is 1 through 1st period, 4th period, 5th period. And then all of our high school is at 9th or 7th period on.
Yeah.
So I'm able to work with multiple junior high teams throughout the day. I am strictly a strength conditioning coach and a coordinator of all sports. It's 800 athletes.
Yeah.
You know, when you talk about cheerleading and tennis and golf and football, basketball, because we have multiple, like we have 2 guys and girls 7th grade basketball teams to football teams, you know, at that age, because we have so many kids coming in at that early age. And so it's been a challenge. Well, I got hired on last year in February. A month later, we're in lockdown.
Yeah.
You know, I moved my family up over in Arkansas from Mississippi in May. Yeah. You know, and then I get kids. It's my first day on the job, you know, June 1st or whatever it was. And I have kids that have been doing nothing for 3 months. Yeah. As everybody did. But then I'm brand new. They had seen me around, but I haven't actually been coaching. Yeah. So that was a whole different dynamic. Yeah. But, you know, it's great for me. My last coaching position, I got to do a lot of great stuff. I was still the strength conditioning coach for every sport. Yeah. But I also coached football and middle school and high school track. So I was being pulled, you know, in different directions because I was coaching football and track, and which really sucked because on my mind, you know, first I got hired on as the strength coach, but I was able to help in these different avenues. Yeah. And I really wanted to do it because those are passions of mine as well, obviously. Yeah. And now they made it very apparent. They're like, you have 800 kids. Yeah, focus on that you have to focus on, and I'm having to coach up these coaches. Because we have 4 weight rooms on campus right now. One that we got built last year, which is amazing. $300,000 facility. Well, not including the turf. So if you had the turf, it's like $365,000 to do the weight room and the turf and all the equipment that I could get my hands on and that he wouldn't let me get. And that's just one weight room. Yeah. You know, so we have 3 other weight rooms now currently. And in the future, softball is getting their own indoor facility, which will have their own little weight room, which would be nice because they don't have to worry about anybody else using space. And then hopefully in the future, we're going to build a multiplex facility right next to our junior high that's going to have multiple courts. Yeah. Because it's tough with 4 weight rooms, but we also have limited court space. Yeah. And you're talking about all these basketball and volleyball teams, you know, it gets to be a headache. So
that's incredible. You'll have 4 weight rooms.
Yeah.
And they're like, I mean, they're top-notch, really nice weight rooms. They're not the big one I've seen.
The big one I would rival against everybody except for maybe Arkansas. University of Arkansas. Yeah. UCA maybe, and Arkansas State. Yeah. There's a couple high schools in Arkansas that have really, really nice weight rooms and facilities. Yeah. But as far as everything that we have, because I got to order everything I wanted, like literally everything I wanted, I'd put it up against anybody's facility.
Yeah, it's I look at your Instagram like, golly, that's a sick weight room, man. Like way better than like every weight room I've been in for high schools.
Well, exactly. And it was one of those things where, you know, it was kind of funny that Dr. Finner, he's our superintendent. I saw the budget when it came in, and he was like, okay, you know, we hired you on. It's perfect timing. Like, we went through Williams Strength and Total Speed and Strength, and they're like, here's what we got. Use your expertise. What do you need? And I was like, looking at it, and I was like, well, you got 1 set of dumbbells from 5 to 100. 1 set. Yeah, yeah. For a whole football team or just anybody. You know, the thing is we have 16 platforms, double-sided rack and halves. And I was like, I could train so many kids in here. But if I wanted to use dumbbells, there's no shot. Yeah. Right? So I got 4 sets, 5 through 100, 2 sets through 125, and 1 set through 150. And that's just that. And then we got 4 sets of kettlebells, 10 to 100. Anyways, whatever. I added like over $100,000 to $110,000, and he didn't blink. Yeah. You know, and that's a dream because that means I know that he's invested, and our kids are going to have no excuses. Yeah. You know, the old hashtag no excuses. Well, we literally have no excuses.
Okay. So, that's super rare. And that you have like a super someone at the top that's bought into the idea of like, of the big picture athletic development. What do you feel like is the big roadblock that's kind of keeping most high schools from hiring on like an actual strength coach or like athletic development coach investing in this? Because I kind of make the joke that the strength coach is always like whoever played in college last,
Right.
you know, and you just do whatever you did in college.
Hey, do you like the weight room? Yeah, you're hired.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like, you're like 22, 24, you know, and like you're kind of a big guy who likes to lift weights. You want to be a strength coach? Like, yeah, sure.
Sure.
Why is that? I mean, why in every other area, like in high school, they see this necessity. Why has the buy-in been, why don't we not see the buy-in for like big picture strength and development?
Because schools aren't mandated by the state to have athletic programs at a certain level.
Yeah.
But you're expected to have your test scores at a certain level.
Yeah.
That's the driving factor.
Well,
That's where the funding goes. And then, but like, you know, full circle, his daughter played softball at Ole Miss when I was there coaching.
Oh, okay.
So that was a tie-in.
Yeah.
Our football coach at the time, he was at, you know, so I had tie-ins there, but he is one of his sons I've trained. He's a pitcher in the Orioles organization. Like, so as a father,
Yeah.
he's had multiple kids, and he's got two other older boys too that were very high into athletics in high school, college, and professional. So he knows the benefit of it.
Okay. I understand that, especially like in somewhere like Memphis,
Right?
Where like, you know, there's limited resources, school budgets, and I can hire strength coaches. But even at like private schools, I mean, I like in the Memphis area, most of like the bigger, more expensive private schools don't have a full-time strength coach who focuses solely on like the development from 7th grade to 8th grade. A lot of them have a coach who also used to be playing college and is into weightlifting, and maybe they've got a CSCS. But in multiple cases, I was saying where it's just like it's a guy who's not even a full-time person there. It's like they're not full-time employee. They just kind of do it on the side.
Well, the private schools are different.
Yeah,
because the private schools do have that.
Some of them do, but I was gonna say like what I mean by that is like I've seen in the private schools where some of them have a guy who's assigned that role.
Okay,
but it's not really what they're experts at. Like they're assigned the role. Don't get me wrong. Like they've got someone they say this is our strength coach.
Right.
But they're not experts at it.
Well,
they're other things and that versus what you are is just that.
Right. Well, I think we're still, I mean, in the world of strength and conditioning, the profession is still very young. I mean, it's been around for a while, but, you know, positions like mine haven't been around for very well.
Right.
You know, a public school hiring a certified strength conditioning coach to do just that.
Yeah.
You know, that takes a lot of forethought and a lot of like, you know, because there might be a lot of people on that school board or within the district that are like,
why are we investing in this?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
You're so invested in athletics. Well, it's not just investing in athletics, and it's investing in those kids.
Yeah.
It's just done in an athletic way. So I think a lot of schools, like I said, are very focused on the academic side because that's where the schools are graded.
Yeah.
And, but, you know, with the position, we bring a lot more than just teaching athletes how to lift weights.
Oh, 100%. Well, I mean, like, my joke is like, you know what? Like, our country isn't really like suffering from a lack of like understanding of calculus at the current moment, but like most people do a pretty bad job of like health management and financial management. So it's like if we're gonna if high school is supposed to like prepare kids for life, it's like two areas we're definitely not excelling in is
Right,
like
exactly.
personal finance and personal health.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Well, and that's one of the biggest things. And I said this, or I say this to anybody I really talk to about my job is that, you know, I am training athletes to be bigger, faster, stronger, to increase their performance so that they can perform at a higher level. And we're also trying to train the bodies to be more durable for less likely of injury, or if they have an injury, they come back quicker.
Yeah.
You know, those things, but that's just part of it. Like for me, what I do is I try to instill this training or or fitness lifestyle. Like, hey guys, we're going to train for 6 years. Or if you start late, 2, 3, whatever.
Yeah.
But just because you're not playing, because 5% of high school athletes in football going to play college.
I think 1% of those then go to play in the pros. So
right, exactly. So you're talking about, not as many kids, but, you won't be playing whatever sport forever. But you should be taking care of your body. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I'm not saying you have to do power cleans until you're 50 or 60. But you should be doing some form of squat or lunge, some kind of pressing, some kind of back work. Like these things are not only to help you perform better at your sport, but eventually perform better at life.
Yeah, 100%.
And grow from that because, I'm 36 and, I compete in strongman and I'll do Highland Games for the first time this year. But, I want to be a really jacked and awesome grandpa.
Yeah.
Hanging out with my kids, my grandkids, and hopefully, willing, if I'm around that long, my great grandkids and being able to do stuff that, a lot of people aren't able to do at that age.
Yeah.
Obviously my focus will change, but I want to instill that in kids. I want, and help them that, hey, you go to college. I still kids hit me up all the time. Coach, hey, I'm trying to do, just college student, but I've gained a couple pounds this freshman year. Can you help me? What do I need to do? It's like, well, number one, you know what to do.
Drink less.
Drink less. More water.
Less pizza.
Yes, exactly. So, but that's the thing. It's not just for sport. It's for life.
Yeah. Well, I think you and I kind of now coming back from the perspective, like we played in college, we played college football. And when you're in high school and when you're in college and you're like, yeah, this is awesome. This is everything. And eventually kind of like, we're now like 36. You're like, oh, that was kind of a long time ago.
Dude, I was thinking about this the other day.
I spent more time not playing football than I have playing football.
We met each other 17 years ago.
Yeah.
That's
crazy.
And I was talking to a friend the other day on the phone. I was like, we're coming up on our 20-year high school reunion. Yeah. I'm like, I don't feel that old, but I mean, dang it, I am.
Yeah. But you and I, like, the weight room is so influential. Like our life lessons have come from the weight room. So it's like, like we realize the impact it's had on us and we're like, want to give that back to other kids and kind of recognize like, hey, look, yes, this is going to make you better at the sport. But also let's be realistic. Like your chances of like making a living in this are close to zero. And like the likelihood is you're only going to be playing this sport at best for the next 8 years. Right. But the things we're going to give you today are going to be something you can take for the next 80 years.
Carry over. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, you got 800 kids.
Yeah.
You've got everything from 7th graders all the way up to, so what's 7th grade? 12-ish? 12, 13?
13. Yeah, something like that.
13 up to like 18. So like, 5-year difference there. Mm-hmm. You've got everything from guys, girls, really amazing athletes. The kids aren't super genetically, not genetically gifted. What's your kind of overall philosophy and developing that wide range of people?
So everybody asks me, this is one of those questions. Well, what do you do different for basketball or for football or for soccer or for baseball? And it's like, you got to understand a lot of this and the age group I'm dealing with. We're dealing with kids that have no training age. So I'm starting them the very first thing that they ever learn about lifting a weight, besides maybe dad or, uncle or whatever, mom, whoever, is going to be me. Yeah. So I start them from day one. And the biggest thing is, teaching them the safety part aspect of it. But, so we're going to squat. We're going to do some kind of push-up, pressing, some kind of exercise, overhead, horizontal pressing, tons of back work. I've never heard anybody say, oh, his back is too strong. Her back is too strong. She's going to get hurt. Yeah. So we're going to do a lot of posterior chain stuff, upper body and lower body. But the big thing is just trying to teach them how to move and get strong through that range of motion. A lot of it, if you look at my program for this sport, a lot of it's the same. Yeah. And everybody's like, well, but why don't you train this sport different than that sport? Number one, they're all 14 years old. Yeah. Or they've only been doing this for very long. They don't need much different. But as they get older and you're looking at varsity sports in high school, you look at the sport demands. Yeah. So you look at basketball and volleyball. What do they do a lot more than a lot of other sports? They jump.
Yeah.
So we're going to add a lot more jump training. And, for volleyball, there's a lot of shoulder, injuries and stuff. So we're going to do extra back work and shoulder work. Baseball and softball and tennis, a lot of rotation.
Yeah.
Even quarterbacks, you can even break it down to the specific position sometimes. We're going to work a lot more med ball throws and, some of those aspects and not so much in other areas. So a lot of it's the same. It doesn't, especially at that age, it doesn't have to be very different.
Yeah.
And what's really hard for me is I have 4 weight rooms.
Yeah.
All of varsity sports basically either practice or lift at the same time.
Yeah.
So the sports that want to work with me, we work it out, but some coaches are like, hey, I got this. We're trying to get this done. Can we use this weight room? Yes. Well, we finally are invested in Team Builder, which is one of those app programs where I can basically design the program, give it to the coach. They have the format. It says, here's the exercise. It shows them a video of it, because a lot of my job is teaching the coaches.
Yeah, so that they can be an asset to the whole program and system.
Right, exactly. So it's not like, well, Coach Simmons isn't here, so I guess we're just going to skip it today.
Yeah.
It's like, no, we still got that work to do just because I'm not there, And finally being a year into it now and learning the ins and outs of not only our school, but the weight rooms and working with coaches. It's like, where can I be? When do I need to be a little bit more with this sport or whatever? So.
Yeah, one of the, I think, misunderstandings when it comes to like strength and conditioning and sports development, especially at this age, like you're saying, is like specialization isn't necessary. It's in fact, it's like until you get to like an appreciable level across like all these capacities,
right?
We don't necessarily need to go in there and like do specific stuff because you still haven't met like the basic requirement for like these journal capacities.
Right.
And if anything, it's like, I kind of will tell people like a lot of times if you want to see a sports specific program, it's more about what I'm taking out of it.
Right.
Because if I know that all day long at soccer, you're going to be running, I'm not going to run you like during the season.
Right.
You're getting all the running you could ever need at soccer.
At practice.
We're not coming.
Games, yeah.
You're not coming to me to run more.
Right.
Like I'm not going to make any better running. What like I'm going to do is help maintain, if not build, some of the strength and power and working the muscles that are getting they're not getting developed in that sport to help prevent you from injury. So what are some of the roadblocks or like roadblocks may be a harsh word, but what are some of the educational like opportunities you've kind of come across where you had to kind of like, sell people on your program? Because I feel like that's a big thing with us, is having to help parents kind of understand the idea of what we do here, why it's important, help coaches understand. I'll give you an example. Like we had a potential client who, she was a high school soccer player, had torn her ACL, and maybe it was like 12 weeks post surgery. And we were talking about like getting her in here and having her kind of start some development stuff. And the dad was kind of real hesitant. Like, I just want to make sure she got cleared by her doctor before she starts anything. And I was kind of like, it was a mistake for her to stop doing things.
Right.
She should have been doing something this entire time. Like she has a jacked up knee. Obviously, we're not going to do anything that places stress upon the ACL. But like, she still has the rest of her body that needs to be developed. She still has the requirements of being strong, being in good shape. And with the torn ACL, she's now going to have to not only rehab the ACL, but rehab all the physical capacities that have diminished from her doing nothing over the last. So it's like we're having to kind of go through this conversation and kind of like help them understand, like, hey, look, whether the doctor says she's cleared to do XYZ on the knee doesn't matter as much as the fact that like she has to be doing something,
Right.
and then we'll address the knee when she's cleared to and she can. That makes sense. So what are some of the kind of educational opportunities or misunderstandings that people had, or some of the things you had to kind of like deal with over the last year, or not even at this in your past?
Well, that was one, you kind of touched on it right there. When I was working at Ole Miss and athletes would come in on recruiting visits.
Yeah.
And you're talking to these kids about what you do in your program and how it's much better than everybody else in the country.
Yeah.
It's really all the same.
Yeah.
But the one thing that we're always going to get work in.
Yeah.
If you got a sprained ankle, we can still work that hip. We can still work, the knee joint. We can still work the other leg. There's one thing that upsets me more. It's like, or nothing that upsets me more than when an athlete goes to the doctor and the doctor who has no training background and, they know what they know.
Yeah.
And so you can't blame them, but they're like, no lower body. Whoa. Like, that's just that leg.
Yeah, that one joint is messed up. Every other joint on that leg
Right.
and the other leg is totally fine.
And you also can't blame them because, like we said earlier, they don't know where these kids are going. They don't know that I'm there coaching these kids, and that's the struggle is there is such a disconnect from our medical community, from the performance community.
Oh, yeah.
And that's nationwide, that's worldwide. That's not, just a high school thing or a collegiate thing. So I'd say that's the biggest thing is when an athlete does have an injury, finding ways to work because,
convincing them and their parents that they need to.
Exactly, because if you're not going to get work, like you said, not only is that, injury going to cause that knee or that ankle to, deteriorate the muscle and the stability around it as it's healing with the specific injury, but now the rest of their body's diminishing too.
You're weaker, you're in worse shape, you have
Right.
less muscle mass.
And the worst part is if that happens like in a preseason, and then now they're cleared, so that means we're throwing them back on the field. It's like, well, if you haven't done anything, you're deconditioned. You're going to get.
You're setting yourself for worse injuries.
Exactly, because you're going to be compensating for that. So, I would say that's probably the biggest thing is the disconnect from the medical community and the performance community. That's why it's really important. And it was great when I was at, my last couple of years and the time I was at Ole Miss, is we did such a great job connecting our sports nutritionists with our sports psych, with our physical therapists, with our athletic trainers, with us, the coaches. Like we were all in that high performance model of everybody's trying to get on the same page.
Yeah. That's why we try to like set up the communication with Ortho South.
Yeah.
But if you go and it's like it's hard to like look a parent in the eye and be like, I know more than your doctor. Like they're like, you're not a doctor, you're a meathead. But to be like, look, I don't know how to fix ACLs. I'm not a surgeon 100%. But when it comes to like movement, development,
right,
training around injuries, like I can promise you I know more than your doctor because I do it all day, every day, and he's never done it ever. And it's a zero experience education. Like you go to him to get the thing fixed. And I don't provide any type of advice on the surgical. I'm like, I don't know, like go to the doctor who does the surgery. He'll tell you how to fix it. But like then that doctor then gives, rehab prescription that is actually not what's ideal for the individual. And then you're like, okay, how do I address this like softly, without them being like, this guy just said he knows more than the doctor.
Right. Well, and so that's one aspect. I think the other one is going to be that for me in particular, I'm dealing with a lot of junior high school kids who, in the grand scheme of things, they don't have a lot of say in what goes on in their life as far as, so I would say the hardest part is the parents. Yeah. When it comes to, like everybody's like, oh, you get to train them year round. Well, I do. But, when we're supposed to be hitting it really hard this preseason and, we have a 2-week dead period mandated by the state of Arkansas at this, but, we're going to go do this vacation the first 2 weeks of June. and then we'll be back 1 week, and then we're going to be off for 2 weeks because they can't train at our facilities or anything like that. It's like, well, that makes it really difficult for me to do my job and help us prepare. And I think COVID last year really hurt. I know we were hurting with not having kids there or kids going virtual, and you know, it was very sporadic and not knowing where's so and so today, or you know, this, that, and the other. I think that's carried on a little bit, and we're kind of like in that post-COVID era where people are still like, oh well, it's not that big a deal if I'm not there because I wasn't there last year, and it's like, no, that's the worst thing.
You need to be here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it's crazy because, you know, and maybe I know for a fact, this is why you and I do what we do, right? Because it meant something more to us. Yeah. But I remember being like, I don't know how I'm going to tell coach that like my parents planned a vacation and I'm not going to be there. Like I'm terrified to death.
So by the way, even if it's like on spring break, you were like, hey, by the way, like my parents were going on spring break vacation, so I'm not going to be here for spring practice or whatever it was going to be.
Right. And I just remember feeling like, man, I'm letting the team down. Yeah. Man, these coaches don't like me anymore. And right now, I mean, honestly, I feel like a lot of kids are like, eh. Yeah. A lot of parents are like, eh.
Yeah. I mean, as a parent, I on one hand, I am kind of like, man, like, I don't want to, like, I want to have my kids, I want to have vacations with my kids. Right. But I also understand, like, we need to schedule them, you know, during the off weeks or whatever.
If there are mandated weeks where it's like, you know, and I get like, you know, whether if it's like a family event, 50th wedding anniversary, you know, if it's something like, you know, something crazy and not even that bad. I mean, I get it. Like they're kids and they need to enjoy it. But I'm like, the selfish part of me being a coach, you know, it's like, because, you know, same thing with my kids. They got stuff that they got to do. But
yeah, I think like we try, one of the things we try to get across to people is like, this is year round. Right. Now I'll tell people, hey, look, your kids playing 2 sports and they're doing XYZ and they get schoolwork. Like during season, if they can get in here 1 or 2 days, like they don't need to be here 5 days and going to practice 5 days and be getting overloaded with homework, you know? Right. And I'm like, if they're playing a sport 1 or 2 days in the weight room, it's still doing stuff because I don't want to overload your schedule, but it's year round. That's what I try. This is not some, you come to us for 6 weeks and then you stop training. Like that's not the way this works. Right. It would be better to do it at a slightly lower frequency each week, but do it consistently, than to do it at a really high frequency each week, but only do it, you know, partially throughout the year. Right. So trying to like help the athletes and the parents understand like this is year round. It's not like if you come here and we do an awesome off-season training cycle for 6 weeks and then you don't do anything, well, in like 4 weeks, you lost it all. So, you know, you kind of wasted those 6 weeks. So we get, you know, we get some of the, like, helping kids, like, and parents buy into doing it. Right. And then also some of the flip side, which is like, hey, my kid needs to train 2 hours a day, 7 days a week. They're also going to pitching coaching. They're also going to speed coach. They're also going to, and by the way, like I noticed my kid was doing this. So in their programming, make sure you put X, Y, Z. And you're like, okay.
Well, you touched on it, and I was going to say this, but you said it actually a couple times right there. Either early specialization, or my kids practicing and playing for another sport while they're in season for this sport. Yeah. So not only are we got kids that are only playing one sport, and I get it. Like baseball was my first love. Like I love baseball, and that's all I played. And then I found football, and I was like, okay, I did baseball and football for a little while, and I was like, oh, I like football a little bit better. And then I got to high school, and I tried all these other sports. I get it. If that's your one sport that you love, I get it. But they need the time off, or they need to cross train. And then on the flip side, man, we got some phenomenal athletes where I'm at, but those athletes are being pulled from 3 different sports, and not only within the school, but you're talking their club teams. Yeah. So they're playing a spring sport, and they're also traveling on the weekends and playing a club sport and then practicing. So I got one girl in particular, phenomenal athlete. She's going to be a senior this year. She is a volleyball basketball, and she does track.
Yeah.
She does track to kind of like cross-train and help her.
Yeah.
But while she's in track, she's got AAU practice for basketball.
Yeah.
And she's doing club volleyball and going to tournaments.
You're like, God, I hope you survive this.
Like, you are a phenomenal athlete, but if you get burned out, I get it.
Yeah.
And if you get hurt, I understand why.
Yeah.
You know, and it struggles and it sucks because right now it's tough, man. When we were growing up, you play baseball during baseball. Then you go play football during football. Then you play basketball. I wasn't good at basketball, but you play whatever. But now it's like, well, if Johnny doesn't play travel ball from 6th grade to, or, 6 years old to 14-year-old, he's not going to get on the high school team.
Yeah.
And so there's that much
Which
stress.
is such bullshit because, like, I was like, Johnny won't make the high school team if he's not good enough. But if Johnny shows up and is an amazing athlete, now, don't get me wrong, I think there are some coaches that that prioritize their own ego over athletes, and so they'll hold grudges against athletes. Yeah. But I was been like, look, if you show up and you're strong, fast, coordinated, can throw the ball super fast and accurate, can hit the ball, far, the coach going to tell you, like, sorry, you weren't here at spring. Despite the fact you're one of the top 10 best players that could be on this team, you're not going to be on the team because you weren't here. You didn't play year round for us, and you decided you also want to go play football in the offseason. I'm like,
yeah, they're unfortunately having coached in high school, or because I worked in the private sector too.
Yeah.
Being around high school athletics for a number of years, unfortunately, there's a lot of coaches out there like that.
Yeah.
That are like, well, you weren't completely bought into our program. It's like they're going to produce for you.
Yeah.
Don't hold them back because, or I've heard even coaches say, hey, look, if you want to be on this team, you're going to quit that sport.
Yeah. That's such bullshit. That's like, I hate that more than anything. That's what it is it's treating. It's like trying to treat kids like they're professional athletes.
It's trickled down, man.
It's like, and the crazy thing is like, and guess what? Professional baseball players don't play baseball year round.
Right.
Like, they're not playing fall, spring, summer, and winter ball. They're having off season, where they're doing some cross training. They're doing some development.
Exactly.
It's like,
well, and there's even a couple of coaches out there that I follow. We're just talking about professional athletes. Back to it, man. Some professional athletes, you'll see the crazy, man. Derrick Henry, some of the crazy things he's doing. But here's the thing. He's the 0.0000001%. No matter what he's going to do, he's still going to be a freak regardless.
Yeah.
And
he could never train. He's still going to be better than most.
Right. He could stop training now. And, he would, it wouldn't help him probably injury-wise. But,
right.
He's still going to be just so much genetically and motivationally. Like, he's an extremely hard worker.
Yeah.
And you can't deny that he has superior genetics and he's one of the hardest workers.
And superior work ethic.
No wonder, right? Yeah. But that's, you got people like, oh, well, look what he's doing. It's like, you ain't him.
Yeah.
Bro. You ain't that.
No, also, it's like, I remember talking to a high school basketball coach who's like, he said that their high school girls basketball programming was the same as like the 1996 Bulls or something. And I was like, okay, there's a big difference between a 27-year-old, 28-year-old professional male athlete and a 15-year-old female.
Right.
So, like, there's aspects of training that can remain the same, but the actual programming is not ideal. It's like, I think that's a big mistake too, is like they look at like professional athletes and go like, well, that's what their training's like. This is what our training is be like. Like, no, y'all are in two different timelines.
Yeah.
In order to get there, you need to do the stuff that you need to do now.
Right.
Not the stuff that they're doing now.
Well, and then there's also a lot of coaches out there in the private sector or professionally that like, hey, look, these guys need to spend their time more perfecting their craft on the field.
Yeah.
So we are going to just stick to the basics. You know, Brett Bartholomew is one that I know he's spoken about it many times and he'll post about it all the time. He's like, you watch my guys in the off season, we're not doing anything special. He's like, but we're getting really good at what we do.
Yeah.
And then they're spending a lot of time in film and, people don't understand that side of it too. It's like, no, we're not just going to do weighted balls, or we're not going to do like balance training or stuff like that, because they've reached that level to where they don't need as high a stimulus as some of these kids that are trying to develop base work. And it's, I'd say that's kind of frustrating.
Yeah, they don't have as professional athletes don't have as much room for growth and development. You're just trying to kind of eke out that little bit, but really just kind of keep their performance at that level.
Right.
It's not as much as you can.
Don't mess them up.
Yeah, don't mess them up. Whereas in like high school, it's like you have a ton of, like your ceiling, you're not even close to your ceiling. We got a ton of room for development. We got to work on developing that.
Yeah.
Well, right on, dude. That is close to the hour, so it's time to wrap it up. Any final thoughts, recommendations out there to either other high school strength coaches or high school athletes?
Yeah, well, number one, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Anytime we get to sit down and catch up and all that kind of stuff, it's always great. The biggest thing, to high school athletes is put the work in. When we were growing up, it was a different time where everybody showed up, or most people showed up, and you were praised for working hard. Nowadays, our culture is where we should praise kids for showing up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the bare minimum.
Yeah.
And it's showing in other aspects, not just athletics, but it's like we forgot what hard work is. And a lot of that's built in from parents, and going through a tough time. And, now they're kind of, I had it rough, so I'm going to take it easier on my kid. Well, now your kids are soft.
Yeah.
So I would say for kids, man, like, the moniker, like, nobody cares. Work harder.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you didn't make the team? Nobody cares. Work harder. Make it next year. Or find another sport and work hard and do that. I would say for coaches out there, especially if they're trying to get into the high school realm, the NHSSCA, I have to think about that every time I say it, organization developed for high school strength coaches by high school strength coaches. I got a lot of friends that I knew and I still talk to on a regular basis there in the college setting. Hey, man, if there's a job like yours that opens up, let me know about it. Because, I left college for a number of reasons. It's to spend more time with my family, and my position now allows me to do that. So if you're wanting to be a strength conditioning coach and especially work at the high school level, look up that organization. They do a ton of free stuff. And reach out to coaches and communities that don't have strength coaches and try to help them. So, yep.
Awesome. Very cool. All right, brother. Thanks for coming on. MBS Fitness Radio out.
Thank you for listening to NBS Fitness Radio. If you enjoyed the podcast, be sure to share it with your friends, follow us on social media, and check out our website at www.nbsfitness.net. Hit the subscribe button and tune in next time for more NBS Fitness Radio.